We've had a slew of ugly early spring training injuries. We've had a number of big drafts in our books now, including LABR last week. TGFBI, aka Yogurt, has started. And there was a Jeff Erickson draft yesterday. Whole that and more with the man in front of the doorknob, friend Zinkie, coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. We got a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, a ton of injuries, so we'll break all of those down. We got some drafts to discuss. It is a fun time right now. I'm excited about that, except for the injuries, Fred. Some nasty stuff there.
Yeah, definitely. This is the reality check week, right? Like we just started drafting, like you said, things like LABR last week, and now TGFBI is drafting, and you do those early drafts, and a lot of people have done some draft champions, and you picture your team all working out. I feel like this is the week in spring training every year where the first injuries start to happen, and you remember, oh yeah, there are going to be a lot of bumps in the road on my way to potentially winning a title.
Yeah, that's right. And case in point, FSGA League. I have got we did 12 rounds in Vegas last week, and then it became a mega slow draft. It picked up, of course, yesterday. They started emailing everybody the picks. Unfortunately, I had just taken Gavin Lux before the injury. So that was a brutal one.
Yeah, I mean, the Gavin Lux injury, I don't think that's, to be honest, I don't think it's a killer to, any teams that have Gavin Lux already. Sorry, what did you mention? What round was it in?
Well, like 18, 17, 18, yeah. 19.
Like you're losing your round 18, 16, whatever pick for the year. It sucks, but by the time we get to opening day, everyone's going to have a couple players on the IL, maybe more. It's not a killer. It's like a buzzkill for sure early in the year.
16, by the way. I had to look.
16,
so it's a little killer, but not as buzzkilly as it could have been, for sure. But I had to immediately get another middle infielder. He was going to be my middle infielder. I'd kind of waited on that. I had a second and short early, and then I waited to fill middle infield. So then immediately after that, I went and got Brendan Donovan the next round, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, one of the things, now I'm just spreading sunshine where it doesn't belong. But one of the things about the Gavin Lux injury is at least you know what it is. It's out of the way. It's over with. You move on, right? The injuries that I find hamper us the most during the season are the ones where, Gavin Lux is out for 6 weeks. Oh, wait, now it's going to be 10 weeks. Oh, wait, now they're not sure if he's going to be back till the All-Star break. At least you know now. You can pivot, even if you're someone who's drafted Gavin Lux and your draft is over. So you don't have the ability still within the draft to pick up another middle infielder. At least you know, I don't have Gavin Lux all season. It's time to figure out another plan. So yeah, like I said, that's me spreading sunshine where maybe it doesn't belong.
Well, yeah, and the availability. I mean, we're gonna have to draft backup middle anyhow. Usually on reserves. Yep. I like to have all three covered, an in middle, corner, and an outfield covered, and then have 4 pitchers on reserve. Now I'll just get another. I know I'll get a middle and maybe get another middle. It's like when I drafted Tatis in the main last year, and I was like, well, I better get another one, and maybe another one after that. Boy, wasn't that fun, by the way, to brag about being the last to take Tatis in any league? Nailed that one. But yeah, so it shows, hey, even then, there's risk. It's an 11th round pick. Who knows who I could have taken with that
Absolutely.
spot? Instead of playing Isaiah Kiner Falefa all season in that spot.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you have Lux, that by the time you get to the first fab period of the season, you're going to be there's going to be players you're dying to pick up who have emerged. Now you've got an easy drop ready to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, okay. So let's talk Gavin Lux. Let's talk, since we mentioned him, he's out for the season, torn ACL, and also looks like LCL as well. A sprain is a tear, people. If you say, well, it's just a sprain on the LCL. No, that's also a tear. So it may not be a complete total tear, but the ACL is gone. Don't look at the injury. It was terrible. What do the Dodgers do, Fred, with that spot?
Yeah, so I guess they just play Miguel Rojas a lot more, right? So I think that's how it's shaping up, right? Rojas at shortstop, Vargas at second. They've talked about playing Mookie Betts a little more often at second. I think Chris Taylor will play. He was always going to play a lot. I think he plays a little more. It's the
Yeah.
Dodgers, so I feel like they'll find a smart way to pivot at some point. Now they kind of have a roster spot available now, or a lineup spot, or whatever. Like not just a roster spot, but a prominent roster spot available if they want to
Right.
pick up another infielder or another outfielder and use guys like Taylor and Betts more in the infield. So I was amazed when I started adjusting my projections how little changed. So obviously, like, Lux gets wiped off the list. Rojas gets put on the list because now he'll get enough playing time, at least for now, until something changes, where he's like draftable, but it's not very exciting. Like he's draftable like late round. To me, he's late round draftable. He'll hit late in the Dodgers lineup. He doesn't have a lot of power or speed. Betts doesn't really change much. If you want, you can give him a really small bump for a better prediction of him gaining second base eligibility. That
Right.
doesn't move the needle much for me, to be honest, because when I've been drafting so far, I find I need outfielders more than I need middle infielders by the late rounds. So I don't. I mean, the in-season flexibility is fine, but like I said, like that's not a big one for me. Miguel Vargas doesn't really move because I already had him slated for like a pretty large amount of playing time. I bumped Chris Taylor up a little bit, but not much. Like
Right.
few more plate appearances. I don't know about you, but I found like for a major injury like this on a really good team, I hardly changed my projections at all. Like I said, I deleted Lux, I put in Rojas. Rojas is still really far down my list, and not much else changed.
Yeah, I agree. And they could put Betts at second, but honestly, I don't think they want to do that all season long. I think that's just a stopgap.
Yeah.
I'll throw a name at you that you might not have on your radar. You probably do because you do your research and all that, but most people might. If you're in a draft champions league, consider Michael Busch. He might not begin the year with the big league club. He is a top 200 prospect, 190 on James Anderson's list. He's going to be in AAA already anyhow. He's 25 years old, so he's not like he's this guy that's not if he shows any sort of competence at AAA, or they have anybody, if Vargas struggles, that finger's a problem, anything like that, I could see Busch getting the call. I could see him getting the call anyhow. He could knock that door down. So I think that's one to channel the great Lenny Melnick. Just etch it on the kitchen table there. As a name. Man, so many names he's got etched in there. I mean, his table must be just splinters now. But Lenny's awesome, and he does a great podcast. You guys should check it out, by the way. So yeah, Michael Busch. Don't forget that name. If you're in an only league, you're in a DC, maybe you don't take him like in the LABR draft that we did, but maybe you do at the last round. But I hate stashes in leagues like that, in fab leagues. But in a league where you're going 750 deep, I would definitely consider him.
Yeah, and I mean, for those who aren't familiar with him, last season spent mostly at AAA, a little bit at AA. Finished the year with 32 homers, 108 RBIs, and 118 runs scored. Now he does strike out a lot. He doesn't steal bases, so yeah, we'll see. But like you said, like late round 40s in a draft champions, you could grab him and just see what happens.
Yeah. And Vargas is interesting too. Vargas is ahead of Busch for a reason. I mean, he's earned that. Miguel Vargas is someone who could play a lot. He started Monday, but didn't hit. That was an interesting thing. He was listed as the number 9 hitter and, was taken out. But, he's got a hairline fracture. When called up by the Dodgers last year, 2 walks, 13 Ks, and 50 plate appearances. So, yeah, he's got some work left to do. Mm-hmm. But, man, you look at his numbers in AAA, 915 OPS, hit for average, walked 71 times with 76 strikeouts. So, great eye, at least in the minor league levels. We'll see how that translates. Last year, he had 17 homers and 113 games. He does run 16 stolen bases last year. So, yeah, Vargas's stock is way up. A couple people in the room are already talking about that there. Brooks and BZA, RZA, GZA. What does that stand for? Let us know. I'm curious. At least let me know. I'm curious. But I gotta, the other guy I gotta mention is I did labor with you. Chris Taylor is one of the panoply of late round outfielders that I drafted like 5 in a row. Draft him as an outfielder, but it helps that he qualifies at second, and he could end up at short too. Because if they find Miguel Rojas wanting, Taylor can end up getting enough games in at shortstop too.
Yeah, for sure. I think you took Taylor in round 21. I think that's fair. maybe more fair now,
Sure,
especially
of course.
that like looks even a little bit better right now. Yeah, I think Taylor's someone who at the beginning of the year will, unless the Dodgers make a trade or something during spring training, I think at the beginning of the year, Taylor will find himself in the lineup probably 5 days a week, maybe in a 6-game week. He probably gets himself in 5 times a week. So, yeah, I think he's fine. We kind of know what Chris Taylor is. He's not going to like win your league or anything, but as far as a depth guy, and like I was mentioning a minute ago, like I'm finding that I don't have in my draft so far, I don't have a lot of outfielders when I hit the late rounds, and I'm looking for outfielders after like round 18 or 20. Like you said, you loaded up, you took 5 in a row. Chris Morel, I think, and Chris Taylor out of them have dual position eligibility. So, but still, you took a lot of outfielders. Even going into that point, you had two, I guess. You had one after 15 rounds in the later draft.
Don't forget, Yordan Alvarez is an outfielder.
True.
He doesn't have the color sticker.
Doesn't have the color coding
on RT,
right.
but yeah,
okay,
he's
so you
an
had
outfielder
two.
too.
So in the first 15 rounds, you had 2, and so did I. I was in the same situation, and I had 2 right through to round 20. Yeah, I did. I had 2 right through to round 20, and ended up having to pick up a bunch of them late. That'll be my weakness at the beginning of the year that I'm going to have to work on. Well, hopefully that's my only weakness. If it's not my weakness, then something else has gone wrong during spring training. But yeah, I think Taylor, like I said, like as your kind of like last starter top bench guy, I think is really appealing.
Yep. Vargas is going to go through the roof. What's his ADP right now? It's going to go up at least 50 points, I figure, after this, if not higher.
Maybe. So I noticed in our LABR draft, I took him in round 18, and that was the last pick of round 18. I passed on him in round 17 for Brendan Rodgers, and then it was not more than a couple picks past me, and I thought, I shouldn't have done that. Like I should have taken Vargas. People were shying away from him because of that fractured pinky, and I like in round 17, I was like, like I said, as soon as it passed me in round 17, I took Merrill Kelly and Brendan Rodgers on the turn. Brendan Rodgers is just a lot safer. I mean, he did get banged up today, but depending on how that all ends up, he was considered a lot safer a week ago. Anyways, and then no one wanted
how quickly the worm turns, right?
Absolutely. And this is a thing, and we'll talk about maybe this a little later with the LABR draft, but like just worrying, are we overreacting to some of these early, not the Lux thing, obviously, but some of these early spring little injuries? Vargas is already fielding, like he said today, he could be hitting in spring training games by the weekend or something. And then it's full steam ahead for someone who's a really top prospect and has a starting job on a really good team. And I was able to get him at the end of round 18. And I think he slipped a few rounds because of the fractured pinky. I think in a few days or in a couple weeks, he's going to be 4 or 5 rounds earlier at least.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm going to go ahead and throw up the I'm going to go ahead post share the LABR draft screen. We'll and you can kind of see that there and see what Fred did with this draft. He's drafting out of the 1 spot there. So you can kind of take a look at that there as we pull it up there. And it was a little you took. Well, I don't want to go into. I take that back. I don't want to share that now because we're going to do that as a whole chapter here. So it's there for people. It's coming. Don't worry. But we got a lot of other injuries, and Jeff's got to stay on target today. He's got to do a better job of that.
Yeah, we got to get to these injuries before we get to the drafts.
Exactly. Okay, big one. Tyler Glasnow. Oblique injury, 6 to 8 weeks. They're talking with him. This is, sometimes when the oblique, it's like, it kind of hurt. He might be day to day. We're going to go get an MRI. No, Glasnow, boom, right away. 6 to 8 weeks. They knew it was a pretty significant one.
Yeah. And as I put in the show notes, and I don't want to be a hater, but yes, knock me over with a feather. You're telling me that Tyler Glasnow is hurt and is going to miss time. I don't know. Tyler Glasnow is a really good pitcher. I was not in on him this draft season at his ADP. I don't know. This time it's the oblique. For Tyler Glasnow drafters, I hope this is it. And then he's back and then he's good the rest of the way. But we're talking about someone whose career high in innings is 111 2/3. And that's the only time he even got to 90 in a season. So I don't know. It just seems with him, even though he's really good now that he's on the Rays, he just can't seem to avoid injuries.
Right. What inning? How many innings did you give him prior to the injury?
Yeah.
Or so now? Okay. Either way.
So I gave him 140, which was obviously higher than he'd ever done before, but he was healthy going into spring training. So sure, even at 140, he was nowhere near the top of my list when he would get drafted. And because you do your projections, like when you have him at 140 innings, and then because he's a highly ranked pitcher, you have other pitchers at 170 and 180 innings in his tier. Like there's just no way at 140 innings mathematically, even with a good strikeout rate like he has, like he just doesn't get to where those, and the win total is not going to project, is not going to be as high. He's not going to have as much influence on your ratios because the innings are lower as someone has the same ratios and more innings. So for me, he was way down from where his ADP was. I'm not taking a victory lap on it because he could actually still come back and throw those 140 innings.
He could.
I just felt like I couldn't project an amount of innings that would get him on my list to where he was getting drafted.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So I had him at 125. I just moved him down to 119 even.
Okay.
And even that, I'm not sure if that's enough. That still might be too many. I've got him for like 8 wins. It's just he's so efficient when he does pitch, but they just don't. They've always limited him, and I can't see that changing.
That's right. Yeah, that's how I feel. And I just don't like when you have an injury now. It doesn't really change the fact that he's still going to be back and then could have another injury during the season. It's not like this. He's just as likely as anyone else to get, or more likely than most guys to get hurt when he comes back. So I feel like now he'll fall pretty far. Do you want to play a quick little would you rather on Tyler Glasnow?
Please, let's do that.
Okay. Tyler Glasnow or Lance Lynn?
Glasnow. I'm not a Lynn guy.
Okay. I think I would take Lynn. How about Luis Garcia? Glasnow or Luis Garcia?
Garcia. Changed wind up and all. By the way, I'm going to be forced with this decision in yogurt. I've got one starter through 7 rounds, and we're going away from me in the 7th round right now. I'm picking out of the 3 spot. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Okay. But I may be forced to make some of these decisions later on.
Glasnow or Nick Lodolo?
Probably Lodolo. I like Lodolo more than most. Team context is awful, ballpark and team. Mm-hmm. However, I know he's going to be there at least for now. I mean, it could change. That's a tough call, actually, tougher than I thought.
I'm going to take Glasnow there. I think I'm going to not the low man on Lodolo, but a little lower. How about Glasnow versus Jesus Luzardo, who always gets hurt, or doesn't always get hurt, but gets hurt a fair amount, but is not hurt right now?
I took Luzardo in labor. Close. Yeah, I mean, that's the range. It's right in that range. I mean, these are all like, so even Lynn, I probably should give a little bit more thought to. I'm so disenchanted with Lynn because I had him in some places where he's just so awful early on last year.
Right.
But almost all the White Sox were. I mean, I'd be hypocritical by saying I'm out on Lynn, but I'm also in on Lucas Giolito, which I am in on Lucas Giolito.
Yeah, I could see. I don't know. Lynn's a lot older than Giolito. I guess I could see that. I actually have them ranked almost like very, very similar to each other. I have Giolito a little higher, but I have them ranked pretty similar to each other. I do think Glasnow we'll see where his ADP lands. I felt like where he was going before, I would rather have Framber Valdez, Robbie Ray, Joe Musgrove, Joe Musgrove pre-injury. Like I felt like these guys were more reliable than Glasnow, but that's where he was going. That was where his ADP was. Tristan McKenzie. I'd take those guys over Glasnow. Now we'll see where Glasnow falls to, because if he settles into that group that I was just talking about, I could throw Chris Bassett in there. I could throw Jeffrey Springs in there. If he starts to fall into that group, then I think you can look at Glasnow. I don't think I would take him over some of the guys that we've mentioned, but not all of them. So I think that's the right tier for him now. In my opinion, we'll see where he falls.
Yeah. The other thing is with him out until basically May, is that the Rays now have to find a new 5th starter. They had 5 solid starters. McClanahan, Springs, Rasmussen, and Zach Eflin are also already in there. They paid Eflin, so Eflin had a job. Now it's Luis Patino again. Yanni Chirinos coming back from a year off. Taj Bradley, Josh Fleming. That's who they're looking at to try to win that 5th starter's job. They're going to need that for a month now.
Hello, bullpen day.
Yeah, the Rays are the inventor of bullpen day, basically.
I could totally see that being the play for them.
Yeah, they already have a lot of red ink in their bullpen again. They always do, Fred. I mean,
Yeah.
they encourage this max effort stuff. I'm really curious to see how the new rules affect the Rays because I think they were really good at manipulating the rules before, whether it
Yep.
be the shift, pitcher usage, everything throughout. I could see a lot of this getting hitting them maybe a little harder than other clubs. So we'll see about that. You alluded to Joe Musgrove. I know when I've been lifting such ponderous weights that are dropping some on my toe as well. Unfortunately, bad break there. Yeah, literally broken toe there. He's not going to throw at all for 2 weeks, maybe longer. Now you're a lifter of weights more than I am, so you know a little bit more. But the thing is, it's a fractured big toe on his left foot. That's his. It's he's pushing off the mound with that. It could last longer than 2 weeks. It's no throwing at all for 2 weeks. And then he's basically starting all over again, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, for sure starts the season on the IL. We're looking at probably mid-March to start ramping up. So I'd say late April. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think there's much difference between he and Glasnow in amount of time missed, actually. I think
Probably
it's
pretty
similar.
similar. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, personally, and I think you'll agree with me here, like I would much rather draft Musgrove because
Yeah.
when he comes back from this, he's a much better history of staying healthy, and the toe, hopefully if it's fine, won't impact anything else. Like I guess I didn't trust Glass now before. I still don't trust him, but um so I think Musgrove, all the people that we already talked about, you would still draft him over them. The
Yeah.
ones that we all compared.
And the thing also is, it wasn't a pitching injury. It
Right.
was a stupid
That's right.
bad luck injury.
Yeah.
And it's not his arm. It's not his oblique. It's not something that he could re-injure. He could pushing off. I mean, it's hard to rehab foot injuries. Because it's hard to stay off your feet, right?
Hmm.
The only thing you can do is rest, which means it's going to be hard for him to maintain conditioning and all that kind of stuff. That's the thing that kind of is a big negative, but he
Hmm.
doesn't go on my do not draft list. He just goes in my draft later list. I put him down to 25 starts for the season. I had him at 29 previously.
Do you know off the top of your head, or do you have in front of you like where he is in your starter rankings now? Like, so for me, I think I've got him around 39, 40, something like that.
I don't off the top of
Okay.
my head, but I could pull. What I am going to do is pull up the roundtable rankings that we just did and kind of keep in mind, where we were at before, and I can kind of, have a better idea of at least of where I go. So just give me a second to
Yeah,
pull
no,
that up.
go ahead. While you're looking that up, I can say that where I have him, I think he would start to be in play for me in a 15 team league, maybe around round 11 would be when I would start to consider maybe round 12. So I do have, so for example, I have Charlie Morton in front of him. Um, I have Rasmussen, who I've drafted in both my drafts so far in round 10, in both of them in front of him. Um, I do have Jeffrey Springs in front of him, although that one I would debate. And I have Jordan Montgomery in front of him because I'm a bit of a Jordan Montgomery guy. So I have him just behind that tier. So I think, like I said, about round 11, he would start to come onto my radar, and by round 12, I'd probably be pretty excited if he was still there. So we'll just see where his ADP falls in the next few days.
That's fair. I'm pulling up my rank. Yeah, the roundtable rankings are cool because you can sort by your own personal rankings here. So
Okay.
I had Musgrove at like 76 prior to this, and we'll do another set of these fairly soon. I gotta imagine that puts him back. Let's see, behind. But I'd say probably behind Blake Snell, Kershaw range, maybe.
He is
Kershaw,
right behind those two guys on my list.
Gilbert,
Yep.
Kyle Wright, who's got his own shoulder thing to watch. I
Yep.
might be too high on on Kyle Wright, actually. Nestor Cortez coming off the hamstring, but he's already throwing. He's
Mhm.
pitching. I think he'll be fine. I don't love Webb, but I've got him in that range. So we're
Yeah,
still
me too.
talking before the 10th. Still in a 15 teamer, it might be different. I might be a little bit more cautious with anybody with a day-to-day or an out or anything like that.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to come into in a 15 teamer, you lose a guy for a month, it hurts a lot more. So in a 12 teamer, I'm more inclined to take him than I am in a 15 and 10. I'm more inclined in a 12. So, but after Giolito, before Lodolo, before Glasnow, definitely before Glasnow.
Right. I also think the league context will matter a lot in the sense of unlimited IL, way more interested in an NFBC style with 7 IL slots. So if you're drafting an NFBC league on March 25th, you can pretty much at that point, you know who's going to be injured on opening day.
Right.
You can plan to draft like one guy or maybe two, where you're like, okay, I'll open the year with Joe Musgrove and one other guy on my IL. I have like timelines for them, whatever. If you're drafting now and you're going to already jam up one of your IL spots by drafting Musgrove, and you're going to do that intentionally, you have to pretty much assume that you're going to have at least one other player, if not two, who get hurt during spring training that you're not going to want to drop. So that one's a little trickier. Like I said, like I would be more inclined to draft Musgrove in late March, knowing that maybe when I hit round 10, I didn't have any injured players yet. So
Right.
so I'm going to take him, and then I'm not going to draft anyone else who's injured at the time. Right now, well, sure, I don't have anyone who's injured yet, but we're just starting spring training. I can pretty much assume that someone else I took in the first 15 rounds will be hurt by opening day.
Exactly.
And then again, those early season bench spots in NFBC leagues are so valuable. In Tout Wars and LABR, they're not, because you just put them on the IL. But in NFBC, like April is the time more than any other month where you want to have bench spots for speculative closers, hot starters, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got a question in the chat room about Fernando Tatis. Did he play? I know he is scheduled to play today, so I got to pull up, and I haven't seen a box score yet from spring training stats, but presumably, if they have they even played yet, or they play at night? That's the question. I have questions, many questions here. He was scheduled to make his spring training debut today.
He did.
They played. He did. So I haven't seen any velos or anything like that, and I don't even know if he's, what he's doing defensively yet. But yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Pulling the box score. He went 0 for 2, scored a run,
stole a base.
Hey, that's nice. We like that. He was the DH, so we didn't see any defense, and that's one of the big things. Is how's he going to adapt to right field? But hey, walked, stole a base. So there's some good things going there for him.
Yeah. This is good. A good step back for people who want to draft him in round 2. I'm not really one of them right now. We'll see if I reconsider later in draft season. But for those who want to draft him in round 2, we'll see if he keeps providing encouraging signs throughout the spring until he has to sit out for a suspension.
Exactly. A couple other injuries before we move on to other topics. Seiya Suzuki out of the WBC, another oblique injury. They're calling it a moderate strain. They also call it Glasnow as a grade 2 strain. So we'll see if we don't have that degree of precision with Suzuki's. How much are you pulling back on Seiya Suzuki right now?
Oh, a little bit. And I was definitely not out on Suzuki, but other people had him higher than I did up to this point. And so I would say I will drop him too far, unless he really, I guess we'll see where he slips in drafts. I don't think I'll be the one drafting him. Again, like I made the point with Musgrove, if I'm going to tie up an IL spot already for April, I think it has to be someone who I'm really high on, like Musgrove. Right. Glasnow. I'm not really high on Glasnow because of the injury concerns, but I get that Glasnow is awesome when he's healthy. So Suzuki's good. I don't know if he's good enough that I want to jam up one of my IL spots right now with him. He would be more appealing, again, like I said, as part of a plan later in March, depending on what his ADP is. But I could see me being annoyed having him on the IL at the start of the year if I already had a couple other injuries and the other players were better than him.
Yeah, he's also a guy that we were paying up for. Yes. Are the industry, not me and you personally, because I couldn't. I got aced out on him. Rudy Gamble got him in the 8th round in LABR last week, which much to the chagrin of Tim McLeod, who prides himself on knowing all the Japanese players and grabbing most of them. But he did not get. He was not able to get him. He was able to get Senga and Yoshida, however. It's funny. You mentioned in the outline, Christopher Morel might benefit a little bit. That's one. Morel's giving me this super sub anyhow, and I think he's going to play a lot. LABR is so far as my good luck league, and FSGA is my bad luck league, apparently, because I had Lux in FSGA, but I have Chris Taylor and Christopher Morel in LABR.
Yeah, so you've already got leagues shaping up as your good luck and bad luck leagues. You grab Chris Morel in LABR. Chris Morel's a neat guy when you rank him for fantasy, because he really does stuff the stat sheet when he plays. Like, he's just got that power speed mix that's really interesting. It's just a matter of how much are they going to play him, Is he going to hit ninth all the time, which I think is quite possible. But he's like I said, he's a really interesting guy. He's someone who, when I did my projections, came out higher in my projections than I anticipated that he would. And then I had to really go back and look at him and decide, like, am I giving him too much playing time? Are these power speed skills, for sure? Like, are they really for real? Because we have a limited sample size on him. But depending on how things shake out with the Cubs, if they had some injuries, he's someone who could end up being a really great value pick this year, because if he does get 550 plate appearances, he will have sizable totals in homers and steals.
Exactly. Final injury note: Garrett Whitlock. Second to the last injury note. Penultimate injury note: Garrett Whitlock. His return from hip surgery is perhaps delaying him for the start of the season, maybe a little slower than we had hoped. He's also transitioning back to the rotation. He was a starter in the minors, wasn't quite clicking in the Yankees farm system. Red Sox grabbed him in the Rule 5 draft, proof that you can still find good players in the Rule 5 draft. But I have a little bit of skepticism about him making that successful transition, getting stretched out. So I don't really have a whole lot of him so far. What say you on Garrett Whitlock?
So I was kind of intrigued. I still am kind of intrigued. I see the same thing that you're mentioning. So to put a number to that, last year he made 9 starts and 22 relief appearances, but he actually threw the same amount of innings. So he threw 39 innings as a starter, 39 and a third as a reliever, almost a total 50-50 split. His ERA as a starter was 4.15. His ERA as a reliever was 2.75. And not that surprising, really, right? Like, opponent's OPS as a reliever, 547, as a starter, 723. He was much more effective as a reliever, which we've seen with so many pitchers over the years. He was just harder to hit. In the same amount of innings, he gave up 15 more hits as a reliever. Control skills were fine in both. Great strikeout to walk rates. I'm intrigued by Garrett Whitlock. I did not quite get him in LABR, but I was interested. He's still on the board in my Tout Wars draft and hold. We're in round, 21 or something like that. And he's still on the board. I don't know if I will necessarily draft him with my next pick, but eventually I'd be interested in him. I think maybe the play with Whitlock now is, if this injury, which seems pretty minor, they haven't even ruled him out for opening day, if this injury causes his stock to really plummet, I think he might be worth the risk as a bench pitcher to start the year.
Yeah. I agree. If you get him that cheaply, great. If you're getting him as your 7th pitcher, not so great.
That's right. But I think that feels about right. Like, that's where he was going, like pick 275, something like that. So if this knocks him down 100 spots and you're getting him on your bench, then I think he's definitely someone to be interested in.
I'm rooting for Whitlock to be a stud reliever. I've got Brian Bayo.
Okay.
I want Bayo in the rotation, Whitlock to be the guy who comes in after him there and wipes people out. That's my goal. It's a very modest goal. Brendan Rodgers, last injury player, popped out his shoulder out of socket today. That doesn't sound great, Fred. Nope. They're saying they're trying to minimize it, but again, spring training injuries like that, they can take a life of their own.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we'll just see where this one goes. Like, a little too early to really comment. Like you said, the shoulder popping out doesn't sound good, but who knows? Maybe they popped it back in. Maybe have seen that before. Maybe they popped it back in and it's not a big deal, but we'll find out coming up. Like I said earlier, I did view Rodgers as like a safe pick when I took him in LABR a week ago.
Right.
I almost took him in the Tout Wars League actually just this morning, and then decided that I didn't want to do that, or at least didn't want to do it yet. And then someone else took him, like Jock Thompson took him right after I picked, like the very next pick. So is
Rodgers your UT? You locked up your UT early, didn't you? In that one, because I
think I might have.
You have Brandon Lau, India. You have Javi Baez, and none of these guys are anywhere else. So
no,
interesting. That's a perfect segue. We're going to talk about your LABR team, but first, we all have to take care of a little bit of business here first. And we'll start off with our good friends at Underdog. The fantasy baseball season is underway, and there's no better place to play than Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy baseball. Right now, Underdog has MLB best ball tournaments live, including the Dinger, which has $500,000 in total prizes. In best ball, all you do is join a contest, draft your team, and that's it. There are no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Draft 20 rounds of players and get the best cumulative scores in your starting lineup. which is 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, importantly, 3 outfielders, and 1 flex each week for the regular season. Outfielders are super important in this format. You'll see a lot of outfielders go in the first 3 rounds. Getting started is simple. Go to underdogfantasy.com, sign up with the promo code RWMLB, and not only will Underdog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you also will get 6 months of a RotoWire subscription for free. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code RWMLB. Draft your $100,000 Dinger team today. Our other title sponsor is our good friends at Fantrax. And Fantrax is a great place to run your fantasy league. We've talked about it before. Tout Wars has used their auction room when we were stuck at home during COVID. Now we're going to be back in New York this year. Excited for that. But they have a great auction room. So I highly recommend that. They offer the greatest experience in dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Even if you're coming from another service, Fantrax makes it easy. They can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. They have an in-depth player pool. If you got the deepest dynasty league, you've got rookie ball players, Dominican summer league players, they'll have them. I guarantee you they'll have them. My name ain't EF Hutton, or no, that's not how the commercial went. But okay. Anyways, so go check out Fantrax on that. Sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Finally, we're on the Blue Wire Network. Here are their ads. All right. Thank you for your indulgence on that. Got all of our business taken care of. We're moving on to talk LABR. And this is where we're going to share the draft board here, because Fred and I did the draft Tuesday night. We did a live stream. For those of you who weren't, logging in at the time, hey, that's okay. I understand it was 2.5 hours, but it was super fun. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Hopefully those of you who tuned in enjoyed it and learned a few things, enjoyed it. We're going to kind of go over Fred's team here. I've talked about mine ad infinitum. There's an article on this on RotoWire, which you can check out at rotowire.com/pod. Go ahead and check out my team and my discussion of my picks. Let's talk about Fred's team. Fred, you had the first overall pick. You weren't necessarily hoping to get the first overall pick. After playing this out, how do you feel about it?
It was fine. So if I didn't take Ronald Acuna Jr., I would have taken Aaron Judge. He went 4th. When I look at the way the second and third rounds would have played out, if I was picking 4th, I probably would have taken the same players. I would have taken JT. I took JT Realmuto in round 2. If I had picked 3 picks earlier in round 2, I would have taken him anyways. So in the end, I was fine with having Acuna. I mean, in general, would I have rather gone? No, actually, I'm good. I was good with Acuna. Like when I look at how the second round shook out, yeah, I like Freddie Freeman slipped all the way. We talked about this on the live stream that he slipped all the way to pick 14. I would have found that really interesting. I don't know if I probably would have paired him with Corbin Burns, but Ray Flowers got him and paired him with Rafael Devers. But I was good. Acuna, and then getting JT Realmuto doesn't usually fall to pick 30. So being able to get 2 guys right off the top, fill a catcher spot, and then have 2 players who both could get me a fair amount of home runs and a fair amount of steals, that was really nice. And then being able to grab Spencer Strider, who you predicted that I would take.
Yep.
Out of thin air. And I didn't think that. I thought I was going to end up taking Aaron Nola. Ryan Bloomfield took him in round 2, which was earlier than Nola usually goes, but I think still like a really good pick.
Yeah, so solid.
Yep.
And with Nola, I get it. I fully understand why. What you're getting with him.
Yep.
You know what you're getting whip wise, and you're getting strikeouts. ERA tends to fluctuate a little bit more.
For sure. And the Phillies are improved, so they were pretty good last year and are improved. So maybe the wins, you'll get a little luckier with the wins. I thought Nola was very undervalued. I didn't really get into the January draft season this year, which normally I do. I thought when I looked through January ADP, though, that was one that I had really targeted. I thought Nola was really undervalued. He was going a month ago in NFBC leagues. He was going like mid 3rd round, maybe even second half of the 3rd round often. So he's moved up, and I think this is where he belongs. He's reliable. So for example, Sandy Alcantara is also really reliable, but he doesn't have Nola's strikeout rate. Alcantara can have like a really high strikeout total, but it has to come with like 215 innings.
Yep, that's right.
Nola can do it in 180 innings. He can get you the same strikeout total. So, and Nola is also a workhorse, maybe not quite the same level, but as good as anyone else other than him.
You mentioned Freddie Freeman, and Brooks mentions that, Freeman's kind of underappreciated. I agree.
Yep.
So we knew about Yordan Alvarez a little bit on Tuesday. That's when the news came out that the hand was kind of bothering him still. I hemmed and hawed. I really didn't snap call Yordan Alvarez at 1.8, and Freeman was going to be my pivot. So I don't think you can make a really good case for Vlad there too. I know you don't like Bobby Witt there, so you wouldn't have gone that way. I probably wouldn't have gone that way. I think you also could have looked at Ohtani. And Ohtani, in LABR, I should say, the Ohtani rule is you get both the pitcher and the hitter, but you have to decide each week where you're going to deploy him. In Tout Wars, they're two separate players. In Ottoneu, you get it. You get the fairy tale. You get it all. You just have to make a decision each day. So that's he's 1.1 in that format. So there you go. So you went Acuna, then you went Real Muto Strider. I've gotten a lot of JT Real Muto early. I like that pick, obviously. I got him at, I think, 213 in FSGA. So I'm in lockstep with you on that. And then we get to the fourth round. And the whole time on the live stream, we're talking about, wow, DeGrom keeps on slipping. I hope I don't get put to the test on that. I think you said 6 or 7 times. You got put to the test on it and you took them. You passed the test, I guess. Or maybe you failed it. I don't know.
We'll find out in a few months. But yeah, I didn't want to have to make this decision, and neither did anyone else. And this was, I feel like, peak DeGrom nervousness or hysteria, right? A week ago tonight. I think so I looked, it's kind of calmed down a bit since then. Like his TGFBI ADP is about 36. His NFBC ADP since in the last like 4 days or so is 37. So he's moved up already this was pick 60. Pick 60. So he's moved up a lot again already. It was one of those things where a player starts falling, and then I think we all start second guessing ourselves. Like, he should have gone in other drafts. He was kind of going around 3. So, okay, he slips into round 4, and then Ray takes Shane Bieber instead of him. Okay. Joe Sheehan takes Zach Wheeler instead of him. Okay. And now everyone starts second guessing themselves. Am I going to be the guy who take DeGrom? And then Ryan Bloomfield later decides he'll just take Kevin Gausman instead of DeGrom. Okay, well, Zach Steinhorn takes Luis Castillo. Everybody just wanted the safer pitchers. And then when it was coming to me, Tim McLeod drafted right before me, and I was just going to take Dylan Cease. I was going to do the same thing as these other guys, kind of wimp out on the whole thing and say, just give me a guy with a better durability track record. Then Tim takes Dylan Cease, and I just decided, you know what? Like, life short, draft Jacob DeGrom. If he turns out to pitch if he could turn out to pitch 160 innings, like with him and Strider, that would be could be a pretty amazing one.
When you speak of us, speak well. That's what happens if that's the case there. As BZA, RZA, GZA says, you could get 500 Ks just from 2 pitchers right there.
Yeah, or something like it. You're right. 400 and something for sure. I mean, it could totally blow up. We'll see. I didn't feel great about the DeGrom pick at the end of that draft. Since then, he's thrown some bullpen sessions. He looks like things are back on track. I don't know. I don't know. And even if he starts opening day, I don't know. Right? Like, we won't really know it won't take till the end of the season. We'll probably know by the All-Star break or so if things are going along fine with him or not.
The other noteworthy thing early on is you took 2 catchers in the first 5 rounds. What in Sam Hill is going on here?
Yeah, that was not the plan. Like I said, I didn't think Real Muto would be there when I picked on the 2-3 turn. So I was happy about that. The Sal Perez pick, I don't like the hitters at all around the 4-5 turn. I when I mapped out my draft, I didn't like the hitters and that were going by ADP. And I had kind of targeted a couple of them. Kyle Schwarber often makes it to the 4-5 turn. He didn't in this draft. Corey Seager, who you took in the middle of round 4, he sometimes makes it to the 4-5 turn. He didn't in this draft. I find around the 4-5 turn, there are so many pitchers drafted. If you just look at ADP and in our draft as well, same thing. Like, around the 4-5 turn and all the way through the first half of round 5, there tends to be a lot of closers go around that time and a lot of starting pitchers. So there aren't a lot of hitters in that area, and I just didn't really love the ones that were there. On my projections, Sal Perez comes out the highest among the players who were available, and it wasn't even that close. I could have maybe gone with George Springer, but Perez came out the highest, and it was, you know what? It was a pretty cool feeling to spend the rest of my draft not having to draft a catcher.
I bet. I
Yeah,
bet.
we'll see how it turns out, but I certainly wasn't sitting there in round 8 or 9 thinking, "Oh, I'd really like to draft a catcher." I don't have the opportunity to do that anymore. Like it's a good feeling. We'll see. Well, like I said, we'll see how it turns out. I know the injury risk that comes with having two really important catchers. The fact that Perez plays DH so much maybe mitigates some of that risk, but
I'll
yeah.
say if I didn't get Seager
Hmm.
in round 4, it might have been Perez for me. I
Mm,
love Perez. I think
yeah.
he's my number 2 catcher. I have him even ahead of Will Smith, who I love. Nothing wrong with Will
Hmm.
Smith. Yeah,
Varsho, though, is Varsho your number 2 catcher?
I
He
guess.
Varsho's my number 2. The steals just like
Yeah.
they're so
Okay. Fair.
valuable.
Fair. Yeah. I'm not a
But I have
Varsho
Perez
guy, although I
third.
did get my first league where I got him in a league this year. I think I got him in the Gladiator draft or
Okay.
somewhere. But yeah. Varsho's probably over Sal Perez, but not necessarily because I think Varsho. I don't. I think he'll come back down to earth batting wise
Hmm.
a little bit more, but I don't know. I think he'll. I could be wrong about that.
I mean, Sal Perez was a second round pick in fantasy last year.
Exactly.
So the ceiling
Exactly.
on him is high. And when you go back and look at his season from last year, like he was really good. He just missed a lot of time. Like he played 114 games, which is his lowest like non-strikes or sorry, COVID shortened season. That's
Right.
his lowest in a decade. And he still hit 23 home runs. Like if he just played his normal amount, and I don't mean the 161 games he played the previous year, just his normal amount, 130 to 140 games, he probably hits 26, 27 homers, which is pretty typical for him. Drives in 80 plus runs, 85 runs. Like for a catcher, that's really good. And he hasn't been a batting average nightmare really throughout his career. He's had a couple seasons that weren't great, but he's a career 268 hitter. That helps your batting average nowadays.
Yeah. League wide batting average last year was 243.
Yeah.
It's the sixth lowest league wide batting average of all time and the lowest since 1968. So we're talking either like super high mound or dead ball era in terms of league wide batting average. It
Hmm.
was just that bad last year. You can see why Major League Baseball is trying to implement all these pro batting average rules, limiting
Yeah.
the shift,
Yep.
limiting the amount of time on the mound. And we're actually starting to see some high scoring spring training games. That these are things that are pointed in favor of the hitter for the most part there. The goal is to try to induce more balls in play. Now, I don't think it's going to take away from the major problem, which I don't know how you do. And that's the crazy velocity increases in baseball, unless there's less rest time between pitches equates to a lower velocities. That's the only thing I can think of as far as anything that arrests that trend.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm a fan of a lot of the league changes right now. Like if we can get more balls put into play or more balls falling for base hits, I think it's a good thing. I don't mind. I'm good with the shift rules.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't mind some little things to try to put the speed game back into effect, which Sal Perez will not be a part of in any way, shape, or form. At his career high of 1 steal in a season. But I like a lot of these changes, and I like the pitch clock already. And if we want to tweak it and add 2 seconds or something, then sure. I thought Max Scherzer, by the way, had the best attitude about the pitch clock.
Yeah.
He's awesome. I love Max Scherzer. Like he's just such a competitor, and him being like, you know what? I got more control. Now I got more control. I'm gonna work fast. I'm gonna work medium, and then I'm gonna work fast. You can't step out of the box. I've got some control right now. So I thought that was really cool. And you know what? Max Scherzer's mindset was like a lot of our fantasy managers' mindsets. How many times have we said over the years, just tell me the rules and I'll play the game?
Yeah,
Right?
it's the Lawr Michaels approach.
That's
The
right.
late great Lawr Michaels always said,
Yeah.
"Just tell me the rules and allow me to make a spreadsheet, and I'll find a way to beat you."
Right. So
And
Max
that's
Scherzer,
the
same.
attitude you got to take.
Yeah. So instead of sour grapes, Max Scherzer's like, great. Okay, those are the new rules. Now let me sit and think about it. Let me
Yep.
practice it. I'll figure out a way to make this work for me. I love it.
You embrace a certain amount of risk on this team.
Yep.
Besides DeGrom, Starling Marte, Felix Bautista, not ready to
Yep.
start spring training. He's
Yep.
your number one closer,
Kyle
and
Wright
your next closer is
is non
Dylan
existent.
Floro.
Dylan Floro. Yeah.
Sir not
Nothing.
appearing in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, you only have 2 relievers. Period.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with just kind of adding relievers early in the season. I don't know if Floro will really turn out, but he wasn't too expensive. Since then, the Marlins have kind of backed off him as their closer, so he might end up being a drop. We'll see, or someone I hold for a couple of weeks. I did other than DeGrom, even on top of DeGrom, I did pick players who had minor injuries or minor injury reports at the start of spring, and I felt like we're dropping an ADP because of that. So on that 6-7 turn, right, Felix Bautista, like he was dropping a bit because they're saying they're not 100% sure if he's going to be ready for opening day. I kind of took that not as a huge deal. If he missed a week or two, I'm still fine with him at the end of round 6, like with the closers that have already gone at that point. Like the next closer to go in the draft was Camilo Duvall and then Kenley Jansen after that. I'll take Batista. I think he's better. So, and if I have to miss he has to miss a couple weeks, then so be it. And same with Starling Marte. Like Marte, they revealed, that he had surgery, groin surgery in the off season. Some people are saying, I think, are taking that negatively, which it might be, but also he played hurt last year when he got a lower steals total than usual. So there's a sunny side of that where maybe now that he's had the surgery, he gets back to being a 25 steal player. So yeah, I kind of embrace, and same with Kyle Wright. Again, like a bit of an issue, but this could just end up being a really small hiccup and he's in their rotation the first trip through. And I was fine with his value on the round 9-10 turn, right? At pick 135, I guess it was. So
Yep.
yeah, I didn't plan on that going in, but I felt like this room was pretty cautious with players who had opened spring training with some sort of a red cross beside their name. So I just took the discounts.
So the way I look at that is, I like maybe taking on one or two. I don't want to have a full portfolio of those type of risks because I feel like at least one of them is going to end up being worse than they've reported. Maybe I'm paranoid.
Maybe it's possible. And if one of them is, then okay, sure. You know what I mean? Like if Kyle Wright opens the season on the IL, but Marte and Batista are a full go, then yeah,
Right.
like I said, I got 3 discounts and that's the price I'll pay for it. So we'll just see it. And again, it depends how long they start because we know those IL stints that started are backdated. And like if someone like Kyle Wright misses a week or 2 weeks out of my lineup, I can live with that.
Yeah. So I get you on that. But as Brendan Rodgers illustrates, injuries come into the league after.
Right.
Too.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
That's the argument against going
unlimited IL though in this league, which is also
unlimited IL.
Unlimited.
It's like Lethal Weapon 2,
Not that I want to
diplomatic immunity.
Not that I want to take full advantage of the unlimited IL, but it does mean if I lose a couple of these guys at the start of the year, I will be able to, on that first fab run, try to start working on my depth and have extra bench spots. And you do lose a bench spot in this one. It's a 6-man bench.
Yeah, that's true. It is true.
Yeah.
You tend to have pairs of players. You doubled up on second baseman. You have a low and a low. You have 2 early catchers. It's a lot of double.
It was not supposed to be like a themed draft, but it wound up being a themed draft.
Yeah.
With all these the catcher thing, the low thing.
Right.
On a lot of the turns, I took one hitter and one pitcher. We talked about that during the live stream. There was one turn earlier on where I took, it would have been the 12-13. I took Brandon Lau and Jonathan India. So that's the one time I took 2 hitters. Other than that, on pretty much every turn, because I felt like I couldn't play the room because I was stuck on the end, I just would take a hitter and a pitcher, try to stay balanced, try to get talent.
That's right.
Yeah. If I was sitting in the middle of the draft, I might have tried to get cute sometimes and draft 2 or 3 hitters or 2 or 3 pitchers in a row, but I just felt like that was the safe way to go. And then because you need more hitters than pitchers, I picked a turn in the middle rounds and went with 2 hitters.
Yeah. I did do a bunch of streaks. I did 5 pitchers in a row. I was light on pitching at the time. And then I did, 8, I think I did 9 hitters in a row after that, including 6 of which that have outfield eligibility, 5 outfielder types in a row. I felt like but some of that is I felt like I was reacting a lot. I was always chasing a little, and that's not good. You want to be dictating, not chasing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And it's usually on the turn where I feel like I'm chasing more than dictating, although I didn't totally feel that in this draft. I don't mind being on the turn. Like it does give you a chance to plan your team out 2 picks at a time.
Right. That's true.
That's the one, like I said, I feel like I can't get too aggressive because I can't get in on runs. But the flip side of that is, I don't try to be cute and play the room in some way and then fail and then miss out on something. I just knew, when I took Felix Bautista, I knew, there's 30 picks until I go again. There aren't going to be any closers there when it comes back to me. Closers who are, really secure in their jobs. So I just know I have to pick someone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Let's move on and talk a little about a couple of players, and we'll talk a little TGBI and Tout Wars here. First, let's talk a little bit about Tristan Casas. You have him in Tout Wars. I have him in LABR. He homered today, by the way. Homered tonight, right before we got started. He hit a big home run. We both have an affinity for him.
Well, I didn't think I did, but I'm starting to come around to him as someone who could be pretty good. Like I wouldn't say I'm like super high on him, but when you look at his projections, like my projections for him were pretty solid, and then I kind of compared them to some of the projection models at Fangraphs, and his job seems to me to be really secure. I don't know if he'll be a high average guy, but he walks a lot, which should be helpful. Like the Red Sox will appreciate that. It'll help him to stay somewhere near the middle of the lineup. If he could be a 20 homer guy, I think, and play every day, I think that could be at the point where he's getting drafted pretty valuable. And yeah, I was going to say he'll steal a few bases. That's too generous. I shouldn't even bother getting into that. But yeah, I know he struggled in the little bit of time, the 95 plate appearances last year. He only hit 197, but he walked a ton, 20% walk rate. He hit 5 homers in the 95 plate appearances. That's good. I don't know. I think there's a chance here that we're looking back at the end of the year and he's got 20 or 22 homers, maybe hit 250, good walk rate. Where I grabbed him was in Tout Wars with the OBP format, which I like him a little better in. Yeah, I think he's pretty solid.
Yeah, I think so too. So obviously I do because I drafted him here. I drafted him last night in the Jeff Erickson draft. I think he's a poor man's Vinny Pasquantino, and I have a certain affinity for him as well. I just think he's a prospect with some pedigree, and he's getting a chance to play, and it's not his first exposure to the league. I think there's a lot of things pointing in the right direction. I think he'll be eventually in the middle of that lineup, if not there from the day one, but he'll be there pretty quickly. So
good park to hit in.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't hurt. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that I like about I like about him. You said you're a Jonathan India guy.
Apparently,
I'm not anti Jonathan India, but I'm also not super pro Jonathan India. So why don't you make the case for
him? Well, I mean, in his rookie year, he was like your prototypical leadoff hitter or like new age leadoff hitter, 376 on base percentage. And that was without a super high BABIP. It was 326. Like that's not super high for a player who's got a little bit of speed. Strikeouts were a little high as a rookie, 141, but that's not that bad. His strikeout to walk is basically 2-1. That's okay. He can steal a few bases. Like again, like he kind of prototype high order hitter, got on base a ton, can run a bit, has some pop. Scored 98 runs. It's not like the Reds had a great lineup in 2021. Like it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't a great one. So, but he was getting on base a lot at the top of the order. So, and then last year, just everything went wrong. So he had multiple hamstring injuries. He ended up missing 59 games. And I think was just rarely, totally healthy and in the flow of things. Even with that, he wasn't abysmal. Like he hit 249, hit 10 homers. It's not good, like at all. But it wasn't like he completely bottomed out and had a 550 OPS or something like that. It was 705. That's, again, it's not great, but I could just see him. He's 26. I could see him coming back this year and looking more with better health and just looking more like he did in his rookie season. And at that point, if you're talking about, and maybe with the base stealing rules and him hitting high in the lineup, maybe he could steal 15. So if he could be a 20 homer, 15 steal leadoff hitter who gets on base a lot, I know it's not the greatest lineup, but I think there's some good potential here. That's kind of how I feel. I was listening to the Launch Angle podcast the other day, and Jeff Zimmerman made a comment on him where he just said that where he gets drafted, he's probably one of the more likely players to be like a top 3 round pick next year, even though it probably won't happen. But if you're just looking at guys around that ADP who could be picked really high the next year, I think he could be one of them.
Yeah. For what it's worth, you got him roughly at ADP at 181.
Yeah, for sure. And same with in my Tout Wars draft. It wasn't a big reach or anything.
And the fact that you doubled up there was annoying to me because I did wait on second baseman. And I think, when Cronenworth, Lau, and India, bing, boom, boom, all 3 in a row there.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurt. I could have, I actually wanted Lau. I thought that was the one that I was like, yes, that's the player I want to get there. Cronenworth and India would have been fine too, though. And once they were gone, I wanted to wait even longer. And I did. I waited a couple more rounds, got boring old DJ LeMahieu, who, by the way, 2 years ago was like a 4th round pick.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
I mean, you can find upside in anybody. And I've burned myself so many times by saying there's no upside on an old player. There is upside still.
Yep, for sure.
Probably needs Happy Fun Ball back though, and I don't think that's happening. So, the power upside's not there anymore.
Right. And so this is where I mentioned when we were talking about Mookie Betts that that I find there's just so many middle infielders out there that I'm fine with. In round 11 I took Javi Baez. I didn't love it, but I think it's fine. Round 12, Brandon Lau. Round 13, Jonathan India. In round 14, I took Josh Rojas, who will play third for me, but I believe is second eligible as well. Brendan Rodgers in round 17. I took Miguel Vargas in round 18, who is not yet second base eligible, but is going to be very soon. I just find that in every draft, there are a lot of middle infielders that I'm fine with in through the middle rounds.
Yeah, I'd say that's right. And I in many of my drafts, I've gotten the early second baseman, and I like that. I've gotten a lot of Marcus Semien. I've got some Albies. I wouldn't mind getting Altuve in that tier. Point is, I think I feel more comfortable walking away with one of the top tier second basemen. However, in this one, I did not. And it was something I did not enjoy for what it's worth. So, yeah, I don't know. This is also, I want to talk about another thing here real quick too. And that is that I think pitchers are getting devalued significantly. We saw it in LABR. I'm in TGFBI right now. And it's true there too. Starting pitchers, no starting pitchers win in the first round of LABR. In TGFBI, the first one went at 2.1. So you could say that happened there, but I don't know if it's going to happen in the main event. Aces tend to get pushed up there. I tweeted the other day, though, there is a non-zero chance that we there'll be at least one main event draft where there's not a first round pitcher.
Yeah, I'm looking at your TGFBI draft board right now, and like Aaron Nola going pick 41, Shane McClanahan going in the 4th round around pick 50. Like there's like Verlander went late in the 3rd, Scherzer, which happens sometimes late in the 3rd. This is what I think we're seeing is like, okay, so pitchers are usually the yellow stickers. Like we're seeing no yellow stickers in the first round, a couple, 3 or 4 or 5 yellow stickers in the second round, and then it starts to really pick up in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. It feels like almost every other pick is a yellow sticker.
Yeah.
So that's where the industry has decided to put pitchers this year, because I think not many of them are fully standing out. Like we can't really decide if how much better Garrett Cole is than Aaron Nola, how much is he better than Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. Like Verlander and Scherzer are two guys who, if they threw enough innings, like could be the number 1 starting pitcher this year. Yeah. So when you can get those guys around pick 40 or 45, it's making people less interested in taking one in the top 10.
So I'm ending up having a similar build to LABR than I in TGFBI. So through 7 rounds, I have 5 hitters and 2 pitchers, one of which is a closer and Emmanuel Clase. I took the second closer at 3.3. I took Dylan Cease. I didn't think I was going to get him anywhere, but I got him at pick 58. 3rd to last pick of the 4th round.
Yep.
I did take Gunnar Henderson in the 6th round. That was kind of a luxury pick. And I was thinking, okay, I'll get Tristan McKenzie on the way back. Nope. McKenzie went 1 pick before me. I feel like that was the end of a tier. I've been, since then I've seen 2 other starters go in George Kirby and Joe Musgrove. Musgrove was someone that set a queue earlier. So I think they're going to be a little unhappy with that. But nonetheless, it's funny. I joked on Twitter. I'm going to be different than everybody else and go hitter heavy in the first round and maybe only take 2 pitchers, except 25 other people have already tweeted something similar to that to TGFBI.
Looking at your TGFBI team, I wonder, I was a little surprised that you took Jeremy Pena, but like you said, you felt like there was a tier drop after Tristan McKenzie, and you just didn't, I'm assuming you just felt like I don't want to overpay just to get a pitcher. One of the guys, he's still on the board, who I thought about could have been on my list, at least an option there would have been Robbie Ray, but you can't really pair Robbie Ray with Dylan Cease. Like they're
Watch
it's not
me.
great.
If it
Like,
comes to me, I'll do it.
oh, you could do it maybe
I
in
will
round
do
8
it.
because
I'll make it do it so fast it'll make your head spin.
yeah, in round 8, I guess the value would just be really good. It's just that would be a weird pair because they're
Yeah,
both
it would be.
pitchers with high whips compared to their ERA. So now you've got two aces who both get a lot of strikeouts, but have a high whip. Now you're gonna have to try to find maybe like some Jameson Tyone type guys where the whip's typically better than the ERA later to offset that. So that would have been a weird one. I'd say looking back on it now, yeah, I guess you could have decided to like maybe you felt like Gunnar Henderson was a little bit of you were getting cute or something, and maybe you should have just taken McKenzie and hoped Henderson made it through the
That's a
turn.
path. But the thing
Yeah,
is, look at that labor draft, and
yeah,
I did it. I mean, Gonsolin and Giolito, they pair well together like peanut butter and
yeah,
jelly.
yeah.
But
Yep, exactly. I guess the other spot would have been instead of Eloy Jimenez. At that point in time, there were still like the next 3 picks were Max Fried, Christian Javier, Zach Gallen.
sure,
Gosman was still on the board. I think I remember you saying last week that you don't feel great about Gosman right now, just with him having to make some minor tweaks to the way he pitches. So I guess instead of Jimenez, there were some pitchers right there if you wanted to get a second
sure.
starter.
Every pick has
whatever.
consequence. But
Yeah, you could take starters with your next 2 picks when it gets back to you. I guess we'll just see who's available.
and I don't even have to. I
Nope.
could take one more hitter and a starter. And
Yep.
I said during the draft, during the live stream, I am way more comfortable with the pitchers in the mid to late teens than I am the hitters.
Okay.
So
hmm
maybe I'll just take a bunch of
Yep.
hitters and then I have fewer to chase later. And just if
Yep.
I'm put that to the test, if I really feel more comfortable with pitching later, why not go where I don't,
Mhm.
it's harder to find the hitters later that I am comfortable with. I mean, I could be wrong about said hitters. We'll see. But we'll find out. But at any rate, it's an interesting thought experiment. It's an actual interesting league, team experiment there.
And going with different builds is fun, right? Like I ended up doing the hitter pitcher hitter pitcher hitter pitcher thing in labor, but I'm not going to do that in all my drafts. I haven't
Right.
done it so far in my Tout Wars draft. Like going with different builds and then looking back and seeing what you like and what you didn't like, both at the beginning of the year when the draft's over and at the end of the year. Like that part's fun. So now you've got this really nice group of 5 hitters to start off your team, and like you said, maybe you'll draft some more when it comes back to you. You're a little hitter heavy early. Maybe you'll be a little pitcher heavy in the middle rounds. It's a different build. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You
Mhm.
know what? I want to go through your tout team next week so we can do it in like
Sounds good.
full, because I think we'd be glossing over it right now. And I'm sure in its majesty, it deserves a full breakdown. So let's make sure we do that properly. Any other player notes, any other individual players you want to talk about before we sign off?
Let's see if there's anyone who I think that we missed so far. I don't think so. I think we had a pretty good
Yeah, I do too.
list so far today. Oh, I wanted to ask you, the White Sox have said that they're going to open the season without a full-time closer. Are you still drafting Kendall Graveman?
So I wasn't drafting Kendall
Never
Graveman.
drafted
I've
him
been
this year.
drafting. I wouldn't say I did draft Reynaldo Lopez last night. And I prefer him to Graveman skill wise, I think, at this point in time.
Okay.
And certainly cost wise, I do for sure. So I want to have Reynaldo Lopez. The fact that they're not naming one individual closer, how many teams are like that right now? Whatever. That doesn't scare me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Liam Hendricks, by the way, went in round 24 of our labor draft to Tim McLeod. I was not on him at round 24, but he was in the back of my mind if he had made it down to about round 27 or 28.
Sure. Why not?
I think that's a totally, yeah. Now, and
Fit
again,
your team's motif.
well, and this is an unlimited IR. So,
Yep.
like NFBC, I'm pretty, because he's going to be gone for a while. NFBC, that's a lot to carry.
Mm-hmm.
And then hope he makes it back and that he's their closer right away and everything. That's a tough one. But these ones with unlimited IR, like stick him in, like Tim can stick him in his IR slot, have an extra bench spot for the first couple of weeks of the season when he's trying to find guys off the wire. And then at some point, Hendricks comes back and hopefully is an awesome story this summer.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
see.
I hope
Yeah.
we're all rooting for him. I mean, that
Absolutely.
would be, but not rooting for him on my team. That format is one where I would do it. NFBC, I will not be getting a lot of him. I don't think. I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
Yep.
So, All right, that's going to wrap things up for today's pod. Want to thank Underdog. Want to thank Fantrax for their sponsorship. Thank you guys. I love the discussion that we had going on in the chat room there. I love the people joining in on the live stream. And of course, thanks to everybody listening on wherever you get your podcast later on too. We really appreciate you. We'll be back at you again next week. Tomorrow, we got James Anderson, of course. And I am going to be with a guest to be named later on Thursday. Thanks everybody for listening. Take care.